Good morning, everybody. Thanks for tuning in today. My name is Noreen Byrne. I'm the co-director of the MSc in Co-operative Agri-Food and Sustainable Development. I'm also the acting director of the Centre for Co-operative Studies. The centre is the oldest research centre in the university, and the centre is hosting today's webinar. So today's webinar is about sustainability and career opportunities. And I suppose sustainability has been a sharp focus in during the COVID-19 crisis, where it's very clear that extensive economic activity has significant impact on the environment, and that can can't stay in lockdown and going to try and economic activity, but I think something to return to business as usual. So today on the webinar we have some key advocates of sustainability within their own organizations. So we have Yvonne Cooney, sustainability at Ornua, Aoife, who is sustainability advisor for Carbery-Dairy, senior CSR advisor for business community, and Dr Noreen Byrne, who's working from a policy perspective. So we'll start with Yvonne. As I said, Yvonne is sustainability at Ornua, and Ornua is an Irish agri-food cooperative which makes and sells dairy products on behalf of its members, and you're all aware of Kerry Gold brand. So Yvonne will talk about sustainability career opportunities in the agri-food and cooperative sector. So I'd like to welcome Yvonne.
Thanks, Noreen. Thank you very much, and delighted to be on the webinar this morning. So yeah, as Noreen said, my name is Yvonne Cooney. I'm the head of sustainability at Ornua. So this morning, I'm just going to run through some slides, just tell you a little bit more about Ornua, what we do, what we're about, and then I'll maybe just have a quick run through, I suppose, of my own kind of career path to date within the agri-food sector, and then maybe more specifically the types of opportunities that we see coming up at Ornua and ultimately across the industry. So just a little bit about Ornua. So we're Ireland's largest exporter of dairy products. So we'll be most well known for the fact that we're the proud owner of the Kerry Gold brand, which I'm sure many this morning will be aware of. We have about 2.3 billion euro in annual sales, so just over 2.3 billion euro a year. And our job essentially is to market the unique taste of grass-fed dairy. So specific to Ireland, we have a grass-based dairy system, and this is a unique selling point for us around the world. And to that effect, we export to over 110 countries, and we've been doing this for almost 60 years now. So we're in our 59th year this year, and we have about 2,400 people around the world. So in Ireland in total, we have just over 300, and the remainder are spread across all 4 corners of the globe. So essentially, our structure sometimes can be seen as slightly complex, but we are a cooperative of cooperatives. So essentially what that means is there are kind of 3 parts or 3 really important pieces to the puzzle of our business. The first piece being starting with the Irish farmer, the Irish dairy farmer. So these farmers are dedicated to producing high quality milk from a grass-based system every single day. And then we have our members. So these are the individual dairy cooperatives and creameries that exist in Ireland. And Aoife is a speaker up later on who's comes from Carbery, and Carbery would be an Ornua member. So our members have state-of-the-art, well-invested facilities, and they provide Ornua with high-quality dairy products that consumers all over the world can trust and enjoy. So these dairy ingredients go into everything from Kerrygold to cheese that we sell in the US to dairy powders that we would sell into the African market. And then finally, Ornua. So essentially, we exist because we have expertise in building sustainable routes to market. And ultimately, our remit is to add value to Irish milk and secure strong returns for our members, and in turn, then a strong return for Irish dairy farms. So this is our global business, just to give you a snapshot. People are always a little bit surprised when they see the reach of what is a very Irish company. So as I mentioned, owner of Kerrygold, we export to 110 markets. You might be able to see the red dots here on the map, and these are our 9 innovation centres. And as you can see, they're spread across Europe, the Middle East, and the US. In white, we have production facilities. So these facilities are essentially where our product is made. And again, you'll see we've quite a few facilities in the UK, some in Ireland. We have in Mitchelstown, close to home in Cork, we have Kerrygold Park, and that's where all of the Kerrygold for the world is produced in Cork. And as I mentioned, 2,400 employees dotted throughout the world, and what's underpinning all of this is our 14,000 dairy farmers. So quite a significant spread globally. So now I'll maybe just run through my own career path, I suppose, how I ended up in the sector and my path through that. So I undertook a BCom degree in UCC. So 4 fantastic years spent at UCC from 2006 to 2010. My major there was management and marketing. So had a real passion, not so much for numbers, but a lot more for words. And I was interested in getting into the kind of marketing and communication space. But when I graduated in 2010, I went to London for a year and spent a year working with a commercial rebranding company called Harkasort. So again, very much working on the branding, the communications, and the marketing side of the house. In 2011 then, I returned to Dublin, having just spent a year in London, and I got an internship with an Irish energy company, EirGrid, which is the national grid, national electricity grid. So I spent 2 years there as a PR and communications intern, and then essentially left EirGrid to move to Brussels for a year on secondment. And I was working again within the energy industry for a company called ENSOE, which is essentially the energy arm of the European Commission and the Centre for Energy. So I was working there as a communications advisor and kind of building on my skills and staying within the PR and the communications realm, and then ultimately returning back to EirGrid after secondment for a period of 3 years. So my route, I suppose, was very much contained within the energy industry, but having done the BCom degree back in 2006, my skills, I feel it's a broad degree, but it means that your skills are very easily transferable, and graduates from the BCom tend to be quite adaptable and agile to all different types of careers. So very simply, in 2017, I decided it was just time for a change. I worked in energy for a long time and needed a new challenge. And an opportunity came up at Ornua to join their communications team in 2017. So a job that really appealed to me. I was always, don't come from a farming background, but always very intrigued about Irish agri-food, and a big lover of food. So I was definitely attracted to the role. So I joined in 2017, and actually it's been a kind of a quick progression for me, which just kind of gives a sense of how sustainability is being viewed within organisations and the importance that's being placed on sustainability. So having joined as part of the communications team, I was responsible for communicating some of the work that we were doing, the company was doing in sustainability. At that point, we had just published our first sustainability framework, and sustainability was a relatively new focus for the business. But I joined really at a good time, as sustainability was really moving up the agenda. Moving up the agenda for our executive team, for our board members, and for our other members, the other co-ops in Ireland as well. So in 2018, it was decided that Ornua would establish its own standalone sustainability team, and that team would operate out of our headquarters in Dublin. So I now head up that team, and so there's 3 of us in Dublin. So myself heading up the team. We have a sustainability and CSR specialist who really looks after everything from, customer relations, engaging with the likes of Tesco in Iceland, Sainsbury's, Costco, Walmart in the US, to CSR and engaging with another speaker we have this morning, Elise McCarthy from Business in the Community Ireland. So really heading up our corporate social responsibility efforts. And just in January of this year, we actually hired a climate change specialist, which was quite exciting and quite new, a very niche role, but I suppose testament to the fact that Ornua was taking sustainability really seriously. So we had gone from kind of one person, myself, working a little bit communicating sustainability, maybe 70–80% of my time, to a fully established team. And we also have, throughout each one of our production facilities around the world, we have someone who is responsible or the champion of sustainability at each one of those sites. So really the idea is that it's ingrained across our entire business. So I suppose that's kind of my career progression to date within Ornua, and it's, I suppose, as I said, establishing a team is a real commitment by the business that we take sustainability really seriously. But I've even been surprised as to how quickly our team is growing, and it's likely to grow again into the future. So, hopefully we'll have more resources working on sustainability within the next 12 months to 2 years. So maybe just on a wider note, this is a campaign that we ran last year in 2019, and we ran this around the world, and essentially it was just promoting the fact that Ornua is and wants to continue to be an employer of choice. I suppose for the group that's on the call this morning, we're always seeking new talent, and whether that be within our office in Dublin or production facility in Cork, or whether that be like the ads out here in Chicago. We have an office in Chicago responsible for sales and marketing within the US. So really, I suppose the opportunities that come up with Ornua are extremely global. And it's a really exciting space to be in. I would definitely advise to anyone on the call this morning to watch out for our graduate program. So we have a well-respected 18-month graduate program. Our teams usually go out in kind of January, February of each year to different graduate career fairs, but our team are always open to anyone who's interested in joining the Ornua team, and whether that's through a graduate program or whether that's through one of our open vacancies, or whether it's simply expressing that you'd be interested in any open opportunities that might come up in the future at Ornua. So I would say for anyone in this call, sustainability is, employers are looking for sustainability, and employers within the agri-food industry are specifically looking for sustainability. And we profit from agriculture, and agriculture, just like the energy industry, just like any industrial companies out there, we have to do business responsibly, and essentially that means really giving sustainability the time and resource that it deserves. So I think in terms of the Masters in Co-operative Studies from UCC, this is really an extremely valuable master's, an extremely valuable accreditation that I think will, anyone looking to move into the area of sustainability into the future, a course like this and a master's like this is of huge value. So that's it really for me. Just want to say, happy to take any questions towards the end of the session today, if you do have any. And as I said, reach out at any time. If you reach out through Noreen, she has my details, or feel free to contact myself directly should you have any questions. If you're interested in general about opportunities within sustainability within the industry, or just specifically if you're interested in Ornua, I'd be delighted to talk to anyone at any time. I'll hand you back to Noreen now.
Thank you, Yvonne, for that. That was great. And thank you for being so open as well, and highlighting all the opportunities. So next up we have Aoife Feeney, who's the Dairy Sustainability Advisor with Carbery. And Aoife will talk about Carbery herself, but Carbery is really a great company. It's, I suppose, an interesting co-op in that it's a federated model with a global reach and an embedded network of co-ops as well in West Cork. So Aoife is going to talk about food, the central importance of sustainability. So thank you, Aoife.
Thanks, Noreen. Hi everyone, so my name is Aoife Feeney and I'm the Dairy Sustainability Advisor for Carbery in West Cork. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about what we do in Carbery and my role in Carbery, and I suppose some opportunities that are out there within the food business. So Carbery Group is headquartered in County Cork and Ballineen in West Cork. We, I suppose, are global manufacturers of nutritional ingredients. We have a flavours business known as Synergy Flavours, and they're a global-based company. And then our flagship product would be Dubliner cheese. So we produce about 25% of Ireland's cheddar cheese, and we're the largest cheese factory in the country as well. So we were founded 55 years ago, and we've got sales of over 434 million, and we're selling in over 50 international markets at the moment. So this is just a map showing our global operations. So we have 11 facilities in 8 countries, with just under 800 employees worldwide. So for a relatively small company starting out, we've quite a large reach globally. So most of our facilities in the States and in Asia are Synergy Flavours, and then our dairy taste is based in Ballineen in West Cork, and we also have a joint dairy venture in the UK as well. So as Noreen said, we've got quite a unique ownership, so we're owned by the 4 West Cork co-ops with Bandon Co-op, Arrow, Drina and Lisbard, and they're 100% farmer owned. So essentially, like Ornua, we're co-op owned by co-ops in a unique sense of the word, I suppose. So we have 1,200 milk suppliers across the 4 co-ops, and looking at the map on the right hand side, if you were to draw a line from Castletown Bear to Kinsale, everything south of that line is kind of our supply base for milk production. Our milk is primarily sourced from grass-fed, and we return our value back to our farmer suppliers with a strong milk price. So we've had the strongest milk price or nationally even for quite a long time. So sustainability, I suppose, is embedded in our business, and it's been a key focus of Carbery long before I joined a couple of years ago. And they were one of the first members of Origin Green under Board B as well. So our main goal is to be recognised as a world-class sustainable business leader. So we've got 4 key focus areas: our environment, our marketplace, workplace and community within the business. And as won't delve too much into this, but I suppose it's just to show that sustainability and our strategy is embedded in every strategy within the business, from marketing right down to farm advisory. So similar to Ornua, we've only recently developed a sustainability team in Carbery in the last number of years. So we have Enda Buckley, who's the Director of Sustainability, and so he oversees sustainability for the entire group globally. And I suppose he came from microbiology and sustainable development educational background. So recently I've kind of moved to Farm Sustainability Manager, and I'll talk a bit more about that later on. And then we have Orla Hurley, who's Site Sustainability Manager for Ballineen, and Orla will cover all of our CSR initiatives, everything from energy, waste and water on site, and some other initiatives including biodiversity around the site. And Orla has a degree in business from CIT and an energy management diploma as well. So just looking at my own career path to where I am today, I completed a degree in animal science in 2015 from UCD. So I have a Bachelor of Agriculture and Science. My major was animal science. I don't come from a farming background, but I always had a keen interest in animals, and I was kind of torn between that and veterinary. So I suppose I went down the animal science route due to health reasons more than anything, and it was the best decision I ever made. I really enjoyed the 4 years in Dublin, and it's just a really broad degree. It's kind of a mix of general science, and then you focus on animal production closer to the last 2 years of the programme. So in 2016, in January, I started a role as an agri-advisor with FRS, which are Farm Relief Services, working on behalf of CHAGISC, who are the National Agriculture and Food Development Authority. So my role there was completing department schemes for farmers, basic payment applications, and majority environmental schemes such as GLAS and irrigation applications. So very much focused at farm and working one-on-one with farmers, kind of looking at nutrient management, soil health, and trying to improve, I suppose, the grass production on farm, as well as making sure that we're compliant with department requests. And then in 2017, I moved to team leader for Cork. So I was covering a team of 15 advisors across all 7 CHAGISC offices in County Cork. And then from there, I joined Carbery Group. So I joined Carbery in June 2018 as a dairy sustainability advisor under the quality team. And my role was to manage the agricultural sustainability support and advisory program. So that program was developed in 2017 and launched in 2018 to improve water quality across Ireland. And it's a national collaborative effort. And I'll speak a little bit more about it later on as well. And then last year I moved to Farm Sustainability Manager. I'm still Dairy Sustainability Advisor, and I tend to go by that more often than not because farmers can resonate better with certain words. So I basically look after everything agri-related or farm-related in Carbery, and work on a lot of projects. And in September last year, I began a master's in agricultural extension and innovation. So I'm currently completing my master's, and I hope to graduate next year. So just looking a bit more in depth into my role in Carbery. Like I said at the start, I suppose sustainability and food production is really at the forefront of everybody's mind that's working within the industry, and not just dairy, but beef. It's all across the Irish food sector at the moment. And it really does boil down to farm level and getting change on the ground. And I think, you know, from the dairy industry perspective, we're pretty good at most of our facilities and sites that are in production are very up to date with the latest technologies and standards in terms of energy, water, and waste reduction targets. So my role is focused on trying to bring a similar ethos to farm level. So the Agricultural Sustainability Support Advisor Programme, as I mentioned, is to do with water quality and improving water quality across the country. And my role is to work with dairy farmers in the programme, but there's a whole host of advisors across the country that work with beef farmers, sheep farmers, pig farmers. And then there's another team that are working with the likes of Carbery in general, with the factories, with county councils, and any industry really that could have an impact on water quality or who are abstracting large amounts of water from our waterways. So it's a massive collaborative effort, I suppose, and there's 190 priority areas for action that we're working in. So we have 5 priority areas in West Cork that concern me, and my role is basically to work with any farmers that supply our factory that are in those areas to come up with farm plans. So we basically carry out farm assessments and set environmental targets and objectives for these farms based on what the potential risks are in those waterways. So whether it's nitrogen or phosphorus leaching, we come up with specific actions relative to those farms. And they're usually cost effective. We try to pick the most attainable action because they're the kind of things that you'll see change quicker on the ground with farmers. And a big part of that programme then is collaborating with key stakeholders such as CHAGISC and the Environmental Protection Agency and the local authority scientists as well. So as I said then last year, I kind of took over all of the agri side of the business in Carbery to do with the farm sector. So I now manage the Carbery Greener Dairy Farms programme, and this initiative was launched in 2012, and it was the first of its kind in Ireland and in Europe as well. So it's an innovative dairy efficiency programme which is designed to measure, monitor and optimise farm allocations and resources. So basically it resulted in a 15% reduction in carbon footprint, and my role now is to try and evolve that programme and get further reductions on farm and to tie the advisory and research together and get the information to farmers. I'm also regional coordinator for Animal Health Ireland, so they look after all of the disease control programs within Ireland. So cell check, Iones and calf care programs are central to animal health and welfare, which feeds back to an overall sustainable business. So I oversee that for the 4 West Cork co-ops. And then I'm also involved in research collaboration on 2 main projects, biorefinery glass and Farm Zero C, which we've just kicked off at the moment. And both feed very much into sustainability and how we can maybe find new ways to use our grass-based systems and also developing a carbon-neutral dairy farm. And then we work closely with Teagasc all the time, especially with Moore Park and Vista Milk on different projects. And then I suppose to feed back to Yvonne, I'd be in contact with Yvonne and Ornua quite often. We would have customer visits. The consumers are always concerned about, I suppose, seeing what's happening on the ground. So we would often facilitate farm visits for customers through Ornua and various other companies. And then we'd work closely with our 4 co-ops, 4 BIA and the farm organisations across the country as well. So just in terms of opportunities that are out there, I always say from challenges come opportunities. And at the moment, I suppose the agri-food sector has very strict targets to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 2030. So we've about a 10 to 15% reduction to meet, and we need to start that from January this year, basically. And we have to have started seeing reductions in order to meet those. So there's quite a strong requirement on the ground, I suppose, especially in the farm side of things, to help farmers to put those actions and measures on the ground in order to meet these reductions. Looking to some of our competitors, if we look at Ireland, Friesland, Campina, they've both set targets to be carbon neutral by 2050. So I suppose we have to start moving in those directions ourselves. And I think Ireland has a really unique opportunity in that we are grass-fed. And while that poses some, I suppose, challenges in terms of there's more methane production from grass-fed animals, I think it really feeds into, the sustainable image, and that it really is truly sustainable. And we just need to start to take advantage of what we have and really drill it down to get ourselves carbon neutral as soon as possible. And Unilever then have set a target of 2030 for carbon neutral. So they're kind of moving on a little bit quicker than our other competitors. But I think there's a huge opportunity there for graduates and researchers in collaborating with the likes of Carbery and all the other dairy and beef sectors as well to try and work on that project together. Like in Ireland, we export to over 180 markets from the agri-food sector. So there's massive opportunities there in terms of marketing and business development of our sustainable produce. We've kind of been able to develop how to, I suppose, sustainably produce our projects or our produce even. But we now need to try and get the marketing right. And Ornua are doing an absolutely excellent job of selling. Like, we sell our cheese to Ornua and they sell it on to the markets, and they're really getting into the nitty-gritty of our sustainable production. But I think companies individually, there's loads of scope there to develop their own marketing opportunities within that, and for graduates to get involved in that. Our Irish farmers are resilient and quite unique with our grass-fed opportunities. And I think it's really important that we protect our family-owned ethos. Like, the majority of Irish farms are small, rural, family-owned businesses. And there's huge scope there to make sure we keep that structure and keep feeding into the rural economy and to develop resilient, sustainable farms going forward. And just on that as well, there's some excellent, for anyone in the agri-science space, there's excellent master's opportunities in that as well. And I think that the UCC Co-operative Masters Sustainable Development, like, that's a really perfect master's in that space, in that you're getting the, I suppose, understanding of the farmer-owned cooperative business model, and that really drills back to their own business as well. So finally then, I suppose, the Carbery graduate program, it's only really running for the last couple of years. It's relatively new. We've always employed graduates, but this is our new program. And it's a 2-year program. It's currently closed for applications for 2020, but it usually opens in autumn. And it's a 2-year program. And it covers all aspects of the business. So you'll be working with Synergy and Carbery, and you'll be working with the commercial, sustainability, sales, marketing, research and development, and production teams. So you really get a taste of the entire business, which I think is brilliant for experience going forward and developing your career. And yeah, I think overall there's massive opportunities out there for careers in sustainable food production. And you know, it's Ireland's largest industry, and it always will be. So I suppose sustainability is quite an overused buzzword at the moment, but it really is the pinnacle of our industry. And I think there's huge opportunity for graduates going forward. And I think, as Yvonne said, you'll see a lot more jobs popping up in the future with, I suppose, sustainability in the title, and developing projects and research in that space. So that's it. And if anyone has any, I suppose, questions or would like to contact me on the Carbery program, I'd be more than happy to help. Or even just for some advice or more questions on my own career, I'd be delighted to hear from you. So I'll hand you back over to Noreen. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Aoife. That was great, and thank you for all that detail and also highlighting the opportunities in relation to the graduate programme. I'd like to introduce now Elise McCarthy, who's the Senior CR Advisor in Business in the Community. And this is an NGO dedicated to, I suppose, making Irish companies more responsible and sustainable. So Elise is going to talk about sustainability in business in Ireland, future opportunities. So thank you, Elise.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Noreen, and thanks to Oliver and UCC for the opportunity. Great to be here. You know, if there's any question about the opportunities that are out there for roles in sustainability, I think the last two speakers have already answered that question to some extent, but I'll add a little bit additional detail and maybe a little bit of context as well as to where sustainability is and why it's coming on the agenda for so many companies these days. So just one slide on ourselves. As Noreen mentioned there, we are a not-for-profit organisation. We're 20 years old this year. We were supposed to be having lots of birthday parties, but COVID put a stop to that for the time being anyway. So we work, we're the Network for Responsible Business, and we work with these 100 companies on sustainability or CSR. We work with them on a one-to-one basis, but we also try and provide platforms where companies can come together, share learning, and I suppose learn and keep abreast of what's a rapidly changing world out there when it comes to sustainability. So if I move on quickly to defining CSR or sustainability, we use the two terms interchangeably, but this framework here is one that we come back to all the time. You might, you know, there was a time, and maybe to some extent it's still the case, that when people hear of CSR, they think of that bottom right-hand corner there, which is to do with community, philanthropy, volunteering, helping build the local playground. And it is about that, but it's also about so much more. And both of our speakers already have alluded to that. The environment is a kind of an obvious one, you know, so as a company does its business, it's not wrecking the environment. And in fact, there's now moves to actually making the environment to recouping some of the good status of the environment that was there previously. On the workplace side is to do with human resources practices. So is it a good place to work? Will you feel engaged? Will inclusion and diversity be respected? And we've seen that topic come to the fore in the last couple of weeks. And just alone on the point of recruitment and companies wanting to retain staff, because retention, you know, when a company goes to the trouble of recruiting someone, that's 6 months to a year where they have to spend time recruiting and then getting the person into the role. So they don't want to be losing people after that effort. So the workplace topic is both it's making society a better place to be because there are more jobs and they're good jobs. It's decent work, but it's also a nicer place to work, and the company gets to hold on to important people. Marketplace, we've heard quite a bit about already in many ways. We had Aoife talking there about products and the design of products and the care that goes into that, and Yvonne talking about that as well, of course. And the supply chain, which is this whole topic of procurement, and in the case of farming, protecting farm families, because that's good for local communities and local economies. So sustainability touches on procurement. It's not just about buying the cheapest thing, but it's about using your procurement power to provide a more sustainable economy and society and environment. So yeah, that's the realm of CSR and sustainability that I would be thinking about all the time when I'm talking to companies. And it rhymes quite well with frameworks like this that you might be familiar with from the Sustainable Development Goals. So you'll see decent work is reflected there, lots about the environment reflected there. And if anyone has picked up the guidance standard for social responsibility, which is ISO 26000, you'll see a lot of resonance with those topics as well. So there is a kind of a general agreement, a general implicit, maybe to some extent, set of indicators out there in the sustainability world for what sustainability is all about and what issues it addresses. So as you've already heard from the two speakers, and both, I think, referred to it being, let's say, in the last decade that the concentration has really come on to sustainability. But why is this? And I'm probably stating the obvious here to a large extent. But anyway, the state of things, I suppose, is one that leaves something to be desired. We, as I alluded to in the last couple of weeks, we don't have to look very far for a dysfunctional society. The two stats on the left-hand side there are from the Edelman Trust Barometer. It is a barometer of trust, what institutions in society are the most trusted, how are people feeling about trust generally, and 64 and 67% of the respondents in that survey were agreeing with those two statements, which are to do with needing to redistribute the wealth in society better, needing to make sure that not all the burden is falling on the least well-off in society. So that's the social aspect of sustainability that is leaving a lot to be desired. On the right-hand side is a screenshot from Storm Ophelia from October 2017. It's one way of capturing the rapid changes we're seeing in our environment and all that brings with it. And so they are problems. And as it says in the headline, it's becoming widely accepted now that business can't thrive where society is dysfunctional and where there's a deteriorating environment, because they are resources that business draws on. So it's not all about altruism when we're talking about CSR and sustainability. It's about good business sense as well. So these are some of the problems, and these are some of the risks that business is having to deal with and having to get its head around. What do we do about this stuff? We've already heard a lot from Yvonne and Aoife about, let's say, the carbon topic. And absolutely, business is rising to the challenge. On the left-hand side, we have companies coming together, pacts for sustainable industries, one that's in Europe, which will be supporting the EU Green Deal, which has been launched in the last 6 months. And the EU Green Deal feeds into the new EU industry strategy, which has been launched in only the last 3 or 4 months, I think. So you have business trying to form coalitions to go, what do we do about this? How do we address these risks? What are the risks? What's the scale of them? The impact of them? How can we address them all together? Because for competitive reasons, companies don't want to go too far out ahead of the posse and bear all the costs of that if nobody else is. Everybody needs to rise to this challenge. And I say this from time to time, that companies are people too. People are in companies. There are lots of documentaries about the dysfunction of companies, but actually employees in companies are having a huge impact within companies. You have people who are very interested in sustainability personally, bringing that into the company, and you can see that effect. And there are examples there on the right-hand side. They're maybe 6 or 8 months old now, but you had employees taking a stance with their CEOs and saying, we want to do something about this. We don't want our company to be badly represented on this issue. So companies and employees have power, and they're coming to see how they can use it in a positive way. Shoring that up, I suppose, are systemic responses that are emerging. Very, very interesting one, which is a real sign that sustainability is coming to the core of business, is epitomized there by the information from Larry Fink. So BlackRock is a company, it says $6.5 trillion there, but actually I've read more recently that they have $10 trillion in assets under management. So these are guys that are deciding what companies will we invest in, what companies will we recommend that others invest in, and they're probably managing pension funds, and they're saying, are we going to invest in that company on behalf of this pension fund? And actually, on the screen there are some of the points that they've been making to the chief executives of all those companies that they're investing in. They must confront climate change. They must prepare for a significant reallocation of capital. Purpose, this whole idea of why is the company in the economy and in society? What is it doing? What does it contribute? That purpose, knowing your purpose in that system, is going to be the long-term engine of profitability. And interestingly, they are saying that they are going to use their power as institutional investors to vote against management that isn't declaring enough on their sustainability activities and their strategies and so on. So this is really becoming a focal point for business, because it has knock-on effects to where banks get their funding, because in the background you have institutional investors like this. They're taking such an interest that underneath there, the TCFD, the Task Force for Climate-Related Financial Disclosures, a public-private global partnership, they are trying to map out the indicators by which they will judge a company that's doing well on sustainability. So a set of indicators for all of those institutional investors to judge what good looks like and whether it has sustainability risks. And investors don't want sustainability risks because it means that down the line they may have to pay for a company that's wrecking the environment or pay for a company that's not treating its employees well, and they don't want to go there. Also shoring this up is that last piece there, the non-financial reporting directive from the EU, which asks that companies report on diversity issues, environmental impacts, employee relations, anti-bribery, and this is required of large entities in Ireland and across the EU at this point. They're only some of the systemic forces that are coming to bear, but they're very interesting ones because, again, as they say, when finance begins to take an interest, then you know that the rest of business will really pay attention if it wasn't before. So with these systemic responses and all of these pressures and forces, business is embracing these pressures and responding to them. We've seen from both Yvonne and Aoife the range of things that both organizations are acting on. And this is a snapshot from AIB. On the left-hand side, you can't possibly read it, but it's essentially a list of all of the things under headings like climate finance, workplace culture, products and services. What are we doing on sustainability in all of these areas? And on the right-hand side, you have a great graphic which shows how all of this decision-making is being managed from the board level down to sustainability teams and sustainability committees. And also, part of this emerging picture is that you will have the sustainability team as like the guardians of sustainability in the business, always keeping a watchful eye. But more and more, the effort is to try and get sustainability metrics put into the day jobs of, let's say, the HR director, the human resources director, who's in charge of or highly influential on what the workplace culture is, what the level of flow of communication is in the business, what the feeling of inclusion and diversity is in the business. So there are metrics coming on to their action plans for the year now, as to how they can improve those situations if that's what they need. So there's change happening in business. It's moving into the core of businesses, as you've already heard from Aoife and Yvonne. So when we ask, is there a role for you in sustainability? Yes, definitely in the particular sectors that were already covered, given the roles or the studies that you're undertaking. But I would say that even if you're not from the Centre for Co-operative Studies or not from the food area in UCC, I would say that there are roles there for systemic thinkers, for people with a sustainability, an interest in sustainability, even if you go to work in the HR function of a business, if you work in the finance function of a business as an accountant or finance person, if you're in the finance area, you'll be in charge of disclosure. What is the company doing on carbon? What are its metrics? So I guess I would say that all of these traditional areas, and we heard as well from our two speakers about research and development and how sustainability thinking now needs to come into research and development. So you're not just making any old thing, you're making a thing that where you've thought about who has supplied this and how are they doing. And you're thinking about the end of life of that thing. What is it wrapped or packaged in? How will it get to consumers? So that requires a sustainability mindset as well. And I've talked about finance. So I would say that there are growing opportunities there for you in the food sector, but in a wide range of sectors. And the last thing I would say to you is be choosy. I think Yvonne and Aoife have put forward very good credentials for their organisations today. So you can see that the companies are active. You can see that this is something they're concerned with changing and improving upon all the time. But whatever company you're looking at, I would say look at these kinds of topics. Look at their website. If they are taking sustainability seriously, it will be in their annual report. They may even have a dedicated sustainability report. You know, are they just looking at carbon, or are there also references to what is it like as a workplace culture? What is their R&D and innovation like? Are they engaging with stakeholders? So not just customers, but local neighbours and other suppliers. Are they engaging with those to see what they expect of the company in relation to sustainability? How transparent is it? Is there management control here? Is it going up to the top of the organisation? Is it spread across the organisation? And is change actually happening? Is there performance coming from all that effort? So yes, that's the last of my slides. Just to say thank you, and please do reach out if you have any questions. And I know there'll be an opportunity for questions at the end of this session too, which I'd be happy to hear what your queries are. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. So I'm Oliver Moore. I'm lecturing in the Centre for Co-operative Studies. I teach primarily about the sharing economy, the collaborative economy, and leadership. So my presentation is called New Directions, How Sustainability Policy and COVID-19 Impacts Jobs. So I'm going to talk about these 6 areas. I'm going to talk about mainstreaming sustainability, national policy imperatives and initiatives, a career focus, EU policy imperatives, COVID-19's impact on food, and collaborative and mutual aid responses to COVID-19. Now, because the previous speakers did such a good job going through how very big organizations and companies are adapting two sustainability imperatives. I won't spend as long on this section as I will on some other sections, but just for now anyway, there are some very specific policies which are shaping the next 10 to 15 to 20 years of the society and economy in Ireland, really. So the Climate Action Plan, obviously, is a huge one, which is in place now, which is where the 10 to 15% figure from Aoife from Carbery came from originally. That, you know, there is that target in the Climate Action Plan. Project Ireland 2030 as well could be seen as a sustainability driver, because it's about balanced regional development primarily. And the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, where the SDGs come from as well, which you also saw previously from Elise. So the SDGs, for example, the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development encourages countries to develop national resources to the Sustainable Development Goals and incorporate them into planning and policy. So our Department of Communications, Climate Action and Environment has led responsibility for promoting and overseeing national implementation of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and its 17 SDGs. And this is a whole of government initiative where all ministers retain responsibility for implementing the individual SDGs relating to their functions. So it's a little bit like the CSR that we saw a second ago as well. Yeah, and there are just to show the scale, I suppose, of green business and CSR. There are awards that, you know, dozens of companies enter every year and win, but I'm not going to go into that now because I think the previous speakers did a great job explaining how companies are. So I want to instead just show again the scale of things like Origin Green. Origin, you can see here, these are all the businesses involved in Origin Green on the right. It's a voluntary program led by Board B that brings together our food industry, from farmers to food retailers to food service operators, with the common goal of sustainable food production. There's 340 members at the business level of Origin Green. And what that means is that there's 340 companies employing people to work full or part-time on sustainability indicators. So there's been almost 2,500 sustainability targets set. And you can see on the right, just from the April report on Origin Green, you can see some of the impacts of Origin Green in terms of efficiency, primarily, driving efficiency, being more savvy with resources. So you can see, you know, improvements in the carbon footprint efficiency of milk, the planting of trees, reduction of farm hazards, planting of hedgerows, and so on. All of these things are part of Origin Green that hundreds of companies are signed up for. So it's not really a sort of fringe area anymore, as you've obviously seen today. What's coming down the line, though, as well, which has been referred to already by Elise, is the EU Green Deal. So this is von der Leyen, the commissioner, and she described the EU Green Deal as Europe's man on the moon moment. So the new commission came in last year, the new EU Commission, and they've put a Green Deal at the core of what they want to do for their tenure. So there's 12 components primarily to the EU Green Deal. They're all here on the screen. The ones that are most relevant for us, I will talk about probably in the next slide anyway. Yeah, so the circular economy, climate law, a just transition, the farm to fork strategy, the biodiversity strategy, and then I suppose more broadly, CAP, the Common Agricultural Policy, will adjust to integrate far more ambitious targets from farm to fork and the biodiversity strategies. So this is Mairead McGuinness, MEP on the right here, describing how the farm to fork and biodiversity plans will shape EU agriculture. So this is a huge seismic change in direction from the European Union. CAP, the Common Agricultural Policy, always had elements of greening in there since 2003. But now the momentum has been upped, the ante has been upped by the European Commission. And it's quite well integrated in the sense that there's these elements, circular economy, just transition, farm to fork, and so on. So one of the, just as an example of what's in the farm to fork strategy, the European Commission wants 25% of farms in Europe to be organic by 2030, and you can see here currently we're at 8.5%. Some countries, obviously like Austria, won't find it too difficult. they're already there. So this is a whole of EU target. So it's an average out. So they'll have to triple the number of organic farms in Europe in 10 years. That's just an example of some of the change. And there's also changes in relation to fertilizers, pesticides, nature set aside, and so on. So all of the measures you saw companies implementing in the previous sort of first 45 minutes of this little session here, those are the kind of measures that make it easier to reach those farm to fork targets. How is the EU going to fund this Green Deal? Well, when it was announced November, they described making available a 1 trillion euro fund. Part of that would be a 100 billion euro Just Transition Fund. But just a few days ago, really, actually about 2 weeks ago, the Commission proposed a 1.85 trillion European Recovery Instrument, which is newly proposed to fund both the EU Green Deal and also deal with the COVID-19 context. So this hasn't been agreed yet. There's what's called the Frugal Five EU member states who aren't so spendthrift, who are a bit spendthrift in terms of EU money. It's about 1% of a country's GDP goes into the EU. So this would require an increase, but it's kind of like a Marshall Plan for Europe, really, in the context of COVID and sustainability issues like biodiversity collapse and climate change. So this may also add to the 1 trillion euro fund, this 1.85 trillion European Recovery Instrument. But either way, anyway, I suppose the point is that the European Green Deal is a core part of how the EU will be moving forward. So, I mean, the elephant in the room, obviously, in lots of ways is COVID-19. So there will certainly be economic decline to an extent and adjustments, definitely adjustments. But also, we've seen mutual aid and collaborative responses to COVID-19. I think there's been a focus on sustainability basics and on agri-food basics as well. You've seen state and EU stimulus packages, and also then the advent of digital distribution. And I'm mentioning these things as well because these are the kind of things that we talk about on our course as well. So just to focus in a little bit on digital distribution. So this is one way of conceptualizing it. So, sometimes things like Uber and Airbnb and so on are called disruptive technologies, or Spotify, because it disrupts the CD industry or whatever. So with digital distribution of agri-food products, so home delivery with internet purchasing. So with that model, you've gone from disruptive technology to technology because of disruption. So COVID-19 did lots of things, including a massive increase in a focus on simple primary products. So people started buying a lot more veg, a lot more flour, and so on. But to maintain that kind of a market for Irish agri-food producers, there's been a huge emergence of digital distribution. So when farmers markets were shut, for example, there's been a massive increase in virtual farmers markets. Neighbour Food has seen a quadrupling of shopper numbers, and this is only in 3 months' time now, remember. Neighbour Food is basically 50 or so producers come together, drop off pre-ordered food for a 2-hour period on a Saturday morning, and then for 2 hours, food is put into individualized boxes from people's pre-orders, and then for 2 more hours, people come and collect. So in that 6-hour turnaround, you have only 2 people employed, really, plus 2 managers or supervisors, and everything is done really quickly, and in a COVID context, it's very safe. So rather than having 50 people in the farmer's market, which has its benefits as well, of course, you can have 6 people or even 5 people managing this turnaround of product, and it suits different people for different reasons as well. So Neighbour Food is an example. The Open Food Network is another example. They've seen a quadrupling of turnover as well, and Open Food Network is also a non-proprietary version, whereas Neighbour Food is proprietary, so the code is specific and privately owned, whereas Open Food Network is an example of an emerging digital distribution system, the kind of thing we teach about on the course. We've zoomed in people from the Open Food Network to talk about what to do. And this is what to do on the left. You can see they just help organizations get set up and get functioning, basically. But it's non-proprietary, so a charity owns the code. So these are the kind of things we teach about, the kind of cutting edge changes in the economy which involve sustainability. So in terms of just the course and the kind of career opportunities you get, this is a long list of words, but I suppose it's all accurate. So, you know, you could be working as a cooperative development professional, consultant, policy advisor, sustainability champion, CSR, or broader sustainability adaptation roles, as we've seen from our previous speakers. There's also rural development professionals, consultants, policy advisors, community development, social inclusion professionals, local economic development, enterprise development staff through local authorities and consultancies, and even food marketing, branding, and compliance staff for new sustainability requirements. So we've seen a lot about compliance actually, and standards and efficiency in the first 3 quarters of this presentation. But to be more specific, rather than talk loosely, I would suggest that when you do your dissertation, think about what you want to do next as well. So we saw some examples of graduate programs, which is great, but also you can create a need for yourself. You can spot a gap and fill it. So for example, if you have a background in environmental science, you might do a dissertation on improved water quality for a group of farmers. And that could then become a European Innovation Partnership application to the Department of Agriculture, which could become a job. So there's that approach as well. So just as an example of some consultancy or coordination type jobs, say for example, a business wants to join Origin Green, a group of farmers want to establish a European Innovation Partnership project like the one I just described. A dairy co-op wants to develop farm green energy. A group of artisan food producers wants to sell directly, digitally. Community groups, rural businesses or organizations want to apply for leader funding. A company wants to integrate fair chain supply into its business, so not just fair trade, but fair chain all the way down. An NGO wants a communications officer. A company wants to adapt to comply to changing its consumer demands and develop a sustainability roadmap, or a municipality wants to integrate the SDGs or donut economics. These are just examples of all of the places you could end up working after a qualification like the kind of qualification that the Masters provides. So there's a huge range of areas, all the way from communications to compliance. And just to finish on a couple of quotes, so sustainability is no longer a policy aspiration, but a practicality with career opportunities, as Professor Patrick Kirby said when describing the course we're delivering here. And then Emma Walls, Commercial Director of Glenisk, the organic and other milk company. Organizations favor experienced practical skills when recruiting, but in our particular case, policy and research is important too. Sustainable food production requires its own distinct business model. This MSc equips students with a great range of workforce requirements that gets the balance right. So that's just an example of and as we've seen from the speakers already, there's a huge shift over to this area, and we'd like to think that the course we're offering here gives some good tools, from understanding blockchain and digital distribution to understanding donut economics and compliance with standard sustainability measures. It's that kind of range. So I'll pass you over to Noreen now, I think.
Yeah, thanks, Ollie. So just Ollie, you might upload my presentation there. Just take a second there. So I'm just going to talk in particular about the MSc in Cooperatives, Agri-Food and Sustainable Development. As I said already, I'm the co-director of the programme. So you can just see here on the slide a picture here of the campus here in UCC. We have a very active green campus committee, which is student-led. And in March of this year, the university celebrated its 10 years holding the green flag. It was the first university to achieve that from the Foundation of Environmental Education. So it has a long history in advocacy for the environment. Just in the top 2 pictures there, from West Cork and East Cork, Aoife talked about the really interesting activity that's happening in relation to Carbery, but also there's in East Cork, there's a group of farmers there under an EIP that Oliver talked about, and they're looking at advancing biodiversity on their farms. Just in the bottom there, the idea of, I suppose, collective, and the programme incorporates, I suppose, food, sustainability and collaboration. And just interesting development that I should mention in UCC this year, where there's a new student society for the promotion of cooperatives, and there's some information at the end of the slide on that. So it's really exciting development, and it's the first of its kind in Ireland. So I suppose this just gets at the essence of the programme. If we're supposed to have a sustainable and fair agri-food system, there's a need for a focus on sustainability, biodiversity, climate change, but social and economic, that the other speakers talked about already. And I think to achieve that, there's a need for collaboration and cooperation. Collaboration between producers and consumers, as Elise talked, between businesses themselves, and also between citizens. So that's a key element of the programme, combining sustainability and this collective approach. So the key features of the Masters are that it's a one-year Masters, 12 months, and it's been in existence for the past 2 years. Coursework is from September to March, and from April to August there's the placement practice-based research project, which Ollie referred to it there earlier, which combines placement with research. So I suppose it's matching the students' interests and the organisation's interest around a piece of research, but also working in a workplace. I'll come back to it later, but this year was a bit more complicated with COVID-19, where people had to work remotely. But hopefully by next year, that will be gone past that stage. So we've academic modules which focus more on theory, but that's matched with practical skill-based modules and industry practice exposure through the placement, but also through field visits. So it's a strong focus on employability. I suppose, as Oliver was talking about earlier there, trying to match where people are coming from, their undergraduate degree, matching it with the Masters and their interests, and trying to identify, I suppose, strategic placements and strategic research proposals that will advance their career. We also work closely with the Careers Office, which provides an excellent facility in that space. And we also run a professional development module as well. So the entry requirements are 2H or equivalent in a level 8 degree in any discipline. So we have people from engineering, science, environmental science, sociology, geography, commerce, law. So we've had people from every discipline. Now, if you don't achieve a 2H, don't worry, still come and talk to us. And you may have experience that's relevant, and we can look at that. And there could still be possibilities. So the key areas of the Masters are agri-food, key issues within that: policy, economic, supply chain, value analysis, branding, digital marketing. In sustainability then, contemporary environmental issues, sustainable rural development, sustainable food systems, marketing and communication for sustainable food production and consumption. Cooperation, collaboration, coming up with, how to respond. So cooperative, collaborative responses, sharing economy, as Oliver talked about earlier. Then transferable skills, project management is a key skill, professional development and research methods, and then the placement for 5 months. So the practice-based research placement, So some of the placements over the last 2 years, Cork Chamber of Commerce, Magic Grow, FDC, NutriBio, Chagas Tipperary Co-op, Macroom Buffalo Cheese, Jordan Eco Village, Environmental Research Institute, ICOS, GTZ in South Africa, and Neighbour Food there as well. So this year's students are doing research projects on things like bioeconomy development in Cork City, cooperative biogas development, rural business resilience, agro-eco advisory, farm partnerships, debt levels in Irish farms, sustainability regulation of the poultry industry, agricultural co-ops in a developing country context, sustainable consumption, financial inclusion, development of cooperatives in Chile, development of sustainable fishing sector in India. And some of those were from the last year as well. So I suppose the key thing is that there's just a broad area of sustainability focused topics that people look at. And as Oliver was saying, it's to be strategic in that, to identify a piece of research that could lead on to something else as well, and that's of interest to particular companies or policy areas. So I won't go through this because Oliver has already gone through some of the areas already. So just in relation to scholarships, I just want to highlight one here in particular, FDC group, Jack Murphy scholarships, and there's up to 4 available. This is a great company, and it's been a wonderful company to work with. They're very student focused, very interested in the students' interests, and then developing and going with those. The requirements are a minimum 2H1 undergraduate degree, and it's the value of the scholarship is 12,500, and there's a 5-month placement with FDC. And the students this year, there are 5 students on that scholarship, and they're covering a wide range of areas, and none in accounting. From farm debt to biogas to eco services advisory. So to apply for that scholarship, you need to identify an important issue facing rural Ireland at present and propose a concise strategy to address this issue, and outline in what way you could contribute to the development of rural Ireland given the challenges identified in question 1. So that's part of the application process, that you answer those two key questions. Some of the quotes from current students, Aoife from this year, despite having not yet graduated or even completed a research project, Aoife was recently offered a position in a green energy company. And she says, it's an exciting role and a great opportunity for me. They were looking for somebody with a background in sustainability and business. They said that the MSc and my research project gave me an edge, which is a real endorsement of the programme. Mike is also from this year's class, and he's also in a current position in out in placement, but this is likely to continue. This programme is designed to complement your skills. If you're coming from business, you're learning about sustainability, and if you're coming from science, you're learning about business. The programme can be very challenging in that sense, but the inbuilt social and sustainability elements make it very interesting. So if you have any questions at the end of this session, or you can come back to me by email, please feel free to do that. We also have an active Twitter account, and some of the student profiles are up there from current and past students, so you can access those. And as I said already about the news about the Student Society, and they have a Twitter account as well, and they would be very happy to have new members. So please feel free to join them as well. Okay, so thanks, Oliver. Okay, so thank you everybody for participating today. So we have just some questions. The first question is for Aoife, and it's just about Carbery, and is there a wider focus to beyond carbon to biodiversity as well?
Yes, so I suppose the Carbery Greener Dairy Programme, we focused very much on soil health at the beginning. And all of those farms, there was 12 initially, and that grew to 28, and they have biodiversity assessments carried out on all of their farms. So we've been working on that information over the years to try and increase biodiversity, or at least maintain what they had. I suppose some of the challenges there, that in certain parts of West Cork, it's quite exposed on the coastal sides. So trying to maintain biodiversity in terms of hedgerows and a lot of greenery is quite difficult in those scenarios. So we probably need to do a little bit more work in trying to come up with parameters for those types of farms, because they will always be that bit different in terms of biodiversity. But it's something we're working on, and we usually work closely with Teagasmore Park on that. In terms of soil health, it's an ongoing kind of, I suppose, parameter on all of our pilot farms. We have over 60 pilot farms, including our Greener Dairy farms. And we work on soil improvement, both the structure and the fertility of it. And that has a direct implication on water quality as well. So the two go very much hand in hand. And then we'd obviously be working with the wider supply base through the ASIF programme on soil health as well. And nutrient management planning is a huge focus. In terms of other indicators beyond carbon, like what we focus on, I suppose, within the farm gate, you cover everything from soil health, grass management, nutrient management, right through to renewable energy, energy conservation, water conservation, and then breeding in the herd. So the Economic Breeding Index is the national scoring system for the dairy herd, and I suppose that was developed in order to improve the herd health, majority of the Irish dairy herd, but it also has massive benefits in terms of sustainability and carbon, reducing carbon emissions. So we've put huge focus on EBI with all of our monitor farms and the Greener Dairy farms. And then I suppose this year we've got funding from Science Foundation Ireland, and we're one senior partner on, it's called Farm Zero C, so it's just recently launched, and we've just started our studies on Chinook Farm, which is owned by the 4 West Cork co-ops, and we will literally be throwing everything at that project. So we'll be looking at soil health, biodiversity, renewable energy, we'll be looking at the possibility of grass biorefining in terms of becoming carbon neutral. And that study will feed back into our Greener Dairy programme, and we'll try and take as much learnings as possible from that over the next few months and implement them where feasible on all of our pilot farms and all of our Greener Dairy farms. So there's a huge body of work going on in the background. I suppose it's hard to discuss all of it in a webinar, but there's a lot. It all, I suppose, boils down to carbon emissions, but biodiversity, I suppose, is its separate target, and it's something that we're actively working on.
Okay, thank you, Aoife. I just have, because I'm aware that we're well over time, I just have one more question, and I'll direct this to Elise, and it's from Sarah, who's interested in CSR. Do you think companies are genuinely interested in this, or is it just a PR tool?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. I'm sure there are some companies out there that are taking a fast route to putting a photograph out there and saying, oh, look, that means we're sustainable. But I think you just have to listen to the speakers that we had today and the amount of detail that they can talk about. Like when you hear companies putting that much resources into something and you don't even see the half of it, all the work that's going on in the background, I think companies really are taking this seriously. And I suppose it goes back to some of the things that I was saying. The financial and economic system that we all live in are coming to see sustainability as either a risk or an opportunity. And if a company isn't addressing these risks or isn't embracing the opportunities that are there, like there are so many opportunities for, I mean, if you take Carbery and our Kerrygold brands, the opportunities for our grass-fed dairy products is a sales pitch, and that is directly linked back to the sustainability of the farms. So that's a valuable asset for the dairy sector in Ireland that the sector doesn't want to lose. So companies are very conscious of those assets that they have. They're also conscious of the risks that may be emerging because as consumers get more focused on plastic, as consumers get more focused on the health of the ocean, and they begin to draw a line back to what about all that packaging that was on the whatever product, things that might seem far away are coming back to companies as risks, which ultimately affect companies' ability to make money. So there is a lot of self-interest here, but that's fine. They're businesses. This is their function in society and the economy. So I guess I would say lastly, I would just say, do understand that there are lots of risks and opportunities driving companies here towards self-interest. And the way to tell is to go back to that last slide I had, which is the extent of the disclosure that the company is showing, how much resources the company is putting into addressing the topics, what are they disclosing about how they're performing. You know, we don't have all the answers yet. What are they doing to try and find those answers? And that's why the websites, the annual reports, they'll give you a feel very quickly for how much effort the company is putting into this. And that says a lot about whether it's just a PR tool or a serious endeavour.
Okay, thank you, Elise, for that. We're way over time and there are some more questions, but we will answer those. We can answer those at the end of the YouTube clip. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in today, and apologies for being over time. And please feel free to ask more questions on the YouTube stream, but also to get in touch with me directly as well if you have any questions, or if you want to make contact with any of the speakers as well. They'd be very open to engagement. So thank you, everybody, and we'll tune out for now.